Little Hope, the second game in the Dark Picture Anthology series, a series made by Supermassive Games, the studio behind Until Dawn. And Until Dawn was a game I enjoyed a lot, to the point I 100%ed it, because it had fairly good characters with fun dynamics between them and an interesting horror story that, while not amazing, it was decent and for the most part avoided a lot of the traps of cheap modern horror. But then the first game in this series, Man of Medan, was, well, not good. It had an interesting setting, but the story itself was lacking, and the characters, well, were pretty unlikable. And it also fell into a whole lot of traps that I mentioned that Until Dawn avoided. So it's fair to say I was not super excited going into this game, and I surely did not have high expectations. So how was it? Story-wise, I will say it is an improvement, but not without its problems. The game starts with a cold opening of this dysfunctional family and their creepy daughter/little sister. The little girl is clearly possessed or influenced by some form of evil entity that makes her kill her family, leaving only her brother alive. After that, we get a title screen, and then go into a room with the usual creepy dude that only exists outside of the story, and he gives you some hints about the story and its real intentions, and then you go back into the game, where a bus gets into an accident going through the town where that incident at the beginning happened. Now, this is where things get strange. The city is covered in fog, and the people on the bus are the same people that were in that family that died, including the brother that didn't die, except now they aren't related and know each other for different reasons. And then later on they start getting flashbacks to these witch trials times, where once again we see these characters that look like the family and subsequently the people on the bus, again with different connections between them and different personalities. And the premise of figuring out what's going on here is interesting and pushes the story forward in a way that is engaging, but it also helps that these characters are a lot more likable, or at least their personalities aren't as obnoxious, as they have enough friction between them to keep things interesting, without taking away from the focus on the story too much. The problem with the story of this game is it's kind of full of hints that aren't very subtle to the true nature of the game. And because I figured out the true nature of this game very early on, it did take away a lot from the enjoyment and intrigue with this game, especially around the witch trials. Let me explain without spoiling, or at least trying not to spoil. There was this one scene at the beginning, still before the bus accident, that made me go, oh, is this what they're gonna do with the plot? This is before we see the witch trials, and before seeing that the bus characters were the same as the ones in the house. And then a bit later on, after the incident, and I would recommend skipping 20 seconds if you don't want to get spoiled, because I do think it is pretty obvious. So here we go. One of the characters goes, "Can you help us in any way?" And this other new character goes, "What are you talking about? There is no us." Which is beyond not subtle, and the game is full of lines like this. But to be fair, they're usually a lot more subtle than this one. But this one was just so obvious and totally ruined my engagement with the story, and it happened so early on. It's less than an hour into the game. There is also a little bit later in the game another dead giveaway in the witch trials flashback. I'm calling them flashbacks even though that's not quite what they are, especially since the characters in current time will interact with the characters in the past time. But the hint, once again, skip 20 seconds if you don't want to get spoiled, is that in the witch trials there is this Asian man, which is weird for 17th century America, and I have seen it being interpreted by gamers trademarked as developers being woke, which I'll say it's some grade A comedy and a great insight in how some of these people think that something I saw as a dead giveaway of the game plot, they saw as a political agenda. But that's besides the point. I'm sorry for veering off a little bit. Even without these problems, that seems to be mostly affecting me rather than other people I have talked to who have played the game, but there are still other problems with this game. A lot of unwarranted jump scares, much like Man of Medan, and also this game can be very derivative of other pieces of horror media, much like other supermassive horror games. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but there is definitely a feel like they didn't get what made the ideas work in those other pieces of media. The standout example here is the fog, that I'm assuming is taken from the Silent Hill games. Big emphasis on assume, since I'm not a horror expert and it could be from something else, but the reason I say Silent Hill, even though Silent Hill surely did not invent the fog in horror, is because this game does have some similarity in the themes to that series, which makes me think that's why it's derivative of that and that they were looking for that feeling, and that is very much speculation, of course. It's hard to dive into more without giving away the plot of this game, so the best way I could put it is the Silent Hill series in a lot of ways tries to find these figurative ways to show the human mind, and I think this game was trying to go for something similar. It's not bad, but it is more of a problem for me than the game when the story hinges so much on its twist. All of this being said, this is still a step forward in story. After all the step backwards that were taken by Man of Medan, we are still not at the level of quality and enjoyment of Until Dawn, but I'm definitely a lot more hopeful for this series now. Onto the gameplay, I played this whole game using the point and click control mode, which I believe is not an option in the other Dark Picture Anthology games, and honestly it was pretty good. It allows you to play the game with a single hand, and it is a nice accessibility feature. It works like the old point and click games, but you can control the camera by holding the right button. It is not perfect though, the mouse is often invisible, which I get for such a story focused game, but during the quick time events, the mouse only becomes visible when it starts, which is really annoying as you find yourself having to find the mouse before you can complete the quick time event. And given how short these are, it can be a bit rage-inducing. I think this could be easily fixed if the mouse just showed up slightly before the quick time event started. A weird issue related to this I found is in this mode, the game would frame skip every time I clicked the left button. Like in situations where I have to press the left button a lot, the game would just turn into a slideshow. Thankfully, it just kinda randomly stopped happening halfway through the game. I don't seem to be able to reproduce it anymore, but it is something I thought I should point out. So honestly, if you have no problem playing the game normally, then I don't think point and click is the way to go, but I'm still glad that the option is there. Another piece of the gameplay worth mentioning is these items you find that give you a view into the future when a character might be in a life or death situation, and much like even in Until Dawn, it is a cool idea done kind of sloppily, mostly because it shows you scenes that will be resolved with quick time events rather than actual choices, so it makes them somewhat useless and ends up being just another collectible. Graphically the game looks good, it's probably its strongest suit, but you can also tell it's bound to age badly as it's going for a realistic look, but as of right now it's alright, and there's enough stylistic choices with the lighting and setting to make it nice to look at, per se, as this is a horror game. Musically though, it's very forgettable. And all I'm gonna say is I'm not a big fan of the main theme of this series. That's mostly a taste thing though. Also, the music can be somewhat manipulative in the way that it's trying to make you feel scared or build tension when there isn't any, or loud stings when there's a jump scare. It's not as bad as some cheap horror movies you see out once in a while, usually around January, but I still noticed it, so be aware. And overall, this game is okay, kinda ruined for me by its very obviously written twist, and I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's okay, I wouldn't rush to play it. Halloween has come and gone, and I definitely think that this would feel a lot better with a price cut. Now, what you can rush to do though is subscribe. Yup, it's free, so do it, and like and comment and all the things as well. I don't know what those things are, but do them. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this was a lot less positive one, but I still gave the game a positive score. Like, I don't think it's a bad game at all. And hopefully, the next one will be better. Anyways, regardless, I hope to see you again in the next video, and goodbye.